to the We Stutter at Work webinar of the National Stuttering Association. I'm John Moore. I'm on the board of directors of the National Stuttering Association. I'm also a person who stutters. For those who do not know, that the National Stuttering Association is a nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing the lives of people who stutter, educating the public, then assisting speech pathologists, championing research, as well as advocating for the reduction of stigma of stuttering. What we have been doing for the past 2 years now is something called We Stutter at Work. This is the program that's all about helping people who stutter achieve career success through mock online job interviews, through webinars such as we have today, and through educating employers about stuttering. The flow for today is going to be a presentation followed up with a Q&A. Sounds good, all right, y'all? Today's topic is a follow-up from last month where we shared advice on job searching, how best to craft your resume, and then some advice on applying for jobs. Of course, this is all done with keeping in mind that this is for people who stutter, which some of that advice is a little different for us because we need to approach things from a different angle. Today, we're going to be mainly talking about job interview skills. And what makes today's webinar really interesting is that we have two hiring managers who will talk about their experience hiring a person who stutters. That's remarkable. These two hiring managers hired today's webinar host. Please welcome Jonathan Lazenby. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Yes. Hi again. We're here for part two, and would like to thank everybody here for coming in for part two. Today we'll talk about handling some difficult resume questions, as in some questions might be difficult to answer. So, as in jobs that you might be separated from, and so it's important to be honest with those, because those questions will be brought up during the interview process. There we go. Okay.
We'll go this way.
Yes, and so also to include your volunteer work, and then also educational experiences, because that will also and come up in the interview process. All right, next. And then also a barrier is explaining gaps to your employment history. In most cases, um, try to talk about the past 10 years, and then fill in the gaps, whether it is due to to education, part-time work, or raising children, because those gaps will be red flags in the interview process. Right, moving on. And then your resume is the story that you are expressing to the employer. Talk about your your skills and traits that you have um, um, for that particular job, and the resume is just um, um, so that you will get a interview, um, and um, the impression that you give in the resume will be the impression that will come out in the interview process. All right, next. So now the highlight of the presentation is I have graciously have two hiring managers who have interviewed me on on in multiple cases. Um, Miss Ellen Morales in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and also Danielle Maury in Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you both for coming on. And I've got some questions here that I'm going to ask. First question is, what was your um, 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 first impression of me Ooh, 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 when I started to stutter in the job interview. Miss Ellen?
Well, when I first interviewed you, if I remember correctly, it was in 2016, and it was for actually a student internship. And so it was initiated through a phone call. So I did hear the stuttering through the phone call, but you were saying what you needed to say in order to try to get the interview for the internship. But it was very helpful because I knew that instead of what I usually do, which is to put applicants one after the other, I was able to save additional time for you so that I knew that you would have the time that you needed to really express yourself. The second time I interviewed you in 2017, I already knew you as a student, and now you were applying for an actual job for hire. And so, I knew you had done so well with the clients and with the staff. So I pretty much thought that I knew how you would be at the interview. I was a little bit surprised that it seemed like you were, more nervous, so that there was a little bit more stuttering than you would normally do on a daily basis. But I knew that it came across so that this was a job that you really wanted, and it was a very difficult interview. So, but I knew at least what to expect, and I also gave you more time.
All right. I'm Danielle.
So I also was given a heads up. I didn't speak with you directly, but the person who had scheduled scheduled extra time. And then I think it was right before the interview, she came and she told me. And so at that time, I really wasn't sure what to expect. And so walking into it, you actually took all the nerves that I had out of it, and you addressed the stuttering right off the bat, which really impressed me. You came off as someone who is well adjusted to the stuttering, and that you were willing to work around it and get the job done. So that was very helpful to me, that you came right out the bat, said, look, this is a condition I have. It is worse when I interview, and this is an interview, and this is my first time meeting the both of you, because there was two of us in there. And then you also had a computer, and you showed us how you use the computer to help accommodate you, and that.
Great. Okay. Second question. Did my stuttering come across as a lack of of confidence? competence, and or nervousness. Miss Ellen?
Well, you definitely seemed competent. I listened carefully to how you answered each question, and it definitely showed that you were competent. You had the skills that were really needed for the job. Also, your passion for the position did come through also. I did sense some nervousness, which would be expected because, again, it was a difficult interview, and this was kind of your first time of interviewing for a counselor type of position. So I did expect that. I think as some of the nervousness was coming through and you were stuttering, at some point I felt like maybe you were getting kind of frustrated with yourself or with the situation, but you quickly kind of came out of that, relaxed a little bit more, and you know, was able to do a good job on the interview.
All right. Danielle?
My experience was similar to Ellen's. I felt you came off very confident, you know, by disclosing right away. And then other answers that you provided to difficult questions, I felt you were confident and also competent of, you had the knowledge needed to do the job. You came off very intelligent. I would say I did pick up on some nervousness, but I don't feel like it was any more than any other person we interviewed that day.
Great. Okay, next question. Did you feel uncomfortable with my um stuttering during the process?
No, not really, because again, I knew pretty much what to expect. And because you were coming across, you know, more sure of yourself. I try to be very patient though, make sure that you got your message across. So no, I didn't feel uncomfortable. And again, I knew that anybody else in that situation, particularly with a difficult kind of interview, which was a two-part thing where you did have to do written part, a written case study, as well as all the different questions, verbal questions, and there was more than one person in the room with us. You know, normally they would have been uncomfortable with the interview, so it didn't make me uncomfortable.
Okay, Danielle?
Kind of like I said in the beginning, how you disclosed made me feel comfortable with you. There was one part where it became uncomfortable, but I feel how you handled it, we just kind of laughed it off. When we do state interviews, we have to write down everything that you say. And then, so you used your computer, but as we couldn't keep up with the computer and writing it down. And so we just kind of laughed it off and moved on. And so I think your personality helped us feel comfortable after we got past that.
Great. Okay. Let's go to because of my stutter, did you feel that that I was uncomfortable during the interview? Miss Ellen?
That you were uncomfortable. Well, like I had said before, I thought at some point, as the stuttering was increasing, that you would seem to be a little bit more frustrated with the situation, with maybe with the stuttering itself. But again, you kind of roll through it, and we continue to ask you the questions and listen to it, and so it turned out okay. But there was just this one one or two little parts where I could kind of sense some frustration coming through.
Okay. Danielle?
I don't think I really picked up on any uncomfortable, just the computer part. But
Mhm.
like I said, we worked through it and everything was good.
Great. Okay. All right. Next question. From the interview, what challenges, if any, did you anticipate me having when I um, s- 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 started the job? Ms. Ellen?
Well, I knew that everything would be fine with the staff, that they would be very accepting. So I didn't think there would be an issue with that. Um, I was a little bit concerned about the particular caseload that you were interviewing for, when you were actually going to be hired, because it was a mental health caseload. So there was a lot of cases with substance abuse and mental illness, and that caseload tends to be a lot more fast-paced, a lot more demanding, a lot less patient, and very difficult even for a very seasoned counselor. So I was a little bit concerned, one, that you were a new counselor, and two, that they may not be as accepting of the stuttering. But I did feel, especially because I had known how you did with as a student, that even though you might have studied a little bit more initially with clients, by the time you really started to feel comfortable with them and they would feel comfortable with you, things would get a lot better. And I knew as a student, a lot of clients really loved working with you and really asked to work with you. So I knew it would be the same eventually with this other case.
Okay, great. Miss Danielle?
One of the challenges was related to the job you were interviewing for, is that it's students who have vision loss, but oftentimes have other disabilities, which could be hearing loss. And so they could rely on reading lips to understand what you're saying. And then you're also working with the parents, who are very hard to maintain communication with. And so a lot of times you don't always get many chances to speak with them. So I was worried that the communication would be hard between the students and with the parents.
Great. All right. Next question. Have you noticed a difference in my stuttering since you hired me after the initial interview. Ellen?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you became more comfortable with the staff, as you became more comfortable with the clients, you were able to do an excellent job counseling each client. You were able to actually lead, facilitate some of our skill building workshops, different group team meetings. You spoke up more in the staff meetings. So definitely, even you attended our brain injury support group in Fayetteville, and even members there were saying from the time that you started to the time that you didn't come as much, that you were really improving. So definitely the stuttering decreased, I think, with your level of comfort and the level of comfort with everybody else.
Okay,
And the only, let me just say, the
Sure.
only time it did decrease, unfortunately, was when your mom died, when your mom passed away.
Right, right.
And that was a very stressful type of situation.
It sure was. It sure was. Thank you. Danielle?
Yes, I would say that it improved. And I was actually really surprised at how outgoing you were. We work on a campus setting, and I mean, you got out and you were meeting people in different programs and networking. And, you know, we've done some outreaches together prior to COVID, and you just, you know, put yourself out there and do a really good job of getting to know people and getting to know resources that could help your consumers.
Awesome. Okay, we've got one more question here. So what advice do you have uh, 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 for someone who who stutters, who is job searching and interviewing for jobs. Ellen?
Well, on an application, I really wouldn't say anything unless it was a standard government type of EOE type of question about having a disability. However, on a resume, if you did belong to different organizations such as the Stuttering Association, I would probably put that on the resume. If a hiring manager did really look at the resume, they would see, okay, well, maybe that person does stutter. But on top of that, it would show that maybe you are an advocate for yourself, you're an advocate for others. It might show good team playing. It could show good leadership skills. So I would definitely try to put it on the resume. For sure, I would definitely say something before the interview. If it was a phone interview, of course, it would have to come up and you could just, you know, say something right then. If it was through an email kind of invitation, then I would say something definitely on the email, and asking maybe for more time so that you had all the time you needed to really express yourself. Then also, I on the interview, you know, I also want to make sure that you understand that you're not just being interviewed. You are interviewing the people that are interviewing you. You're interviewing the entire business or facility or wherever you're applying. And so it's important that, you know, from the time that you walk in the door, you know, how you were greeted by the receptionist, you know, is it different from other people sitting in the lobby? How are other people passing by, talking amongst each other or greeting you? And then when you're actually in the interview, so you want to look at the culture of the work environment. When you're in the interview, you want to look at or see how you're feeling. How is the hiring manager dealing with the stuttering? Are they trying to rush you? Can you tell that they're not patient? Looking at their body language. You know, is this a place that you really want to even work for? So the main thing is to know that you are interviewing them too. And another thing that I think is important, if you're giving a list of references, that I think you should talk with each reference person and let them know whether or not, since it's usually they're going to be contacted after the interview, so the hiring manager is going to know already about the stuttering. You should let them know whether or not you want them to say something about the stuttering. It could really be to your advantage because they would probably say something that it didn't interfere with anything, or you know, there was a very positive thing about it or whatever. So I think that would be something good for you to talk about with the person that you were going to use as a reference.
Great. Great. Danielle?
If comfortable, I would suggest disclosing right away, because that just kind of takes the elephant out of the room and helps it gives you the opportunity to tell, like you did with us, is what accommodations do you use or how do you work around it. So I would suggest that. And then the one thing that I really remember out of both of your interviews is that you gave a lot of examples of accomplishments or experiences working with clients. And so those examples showed us that the stuttering is not going to get in the way. You're going to be able to do the work. And a lot of the things that you accomplished while working with clients, it just showed it doesn't hold you back or get in the way.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, those are my questions. So, so now if we have any questions, John.
So we're going to open up to questions from the attendees here. There are two ways to participate. You can put your question in the chat box, or what you can also do is go down to the participants button at the bottom. You can raise your hand and we can go that way there. But right now I see someone physically raise their hand, and that goes to Adam, who is going to unmute his phone and he's going to ask a question.
Check the chat box. Chat box.
In the chat box. So in the chat box, you had the question of, I think, to the fact of, if you feel hot or if you feel sick, should you just power through it or should you go home? Is that kind of the question, Adam?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, is it wise to toughen it out if you feel sick at work and not tell anyone so you won't be home, so you won't be sent home? Can you toughen it out? I mean, if you're if you're hot, you can pretend, I mean that I don't know, but it's just because why I was I was at work. I felt hot, so what happened? I was sent home, and you know what? I was extremely angry. I was upset because why? I was just hot. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, I was mad.
Okay, I got that. So Ellen, would you care to offer up perspective on
That is it. That's it.
Thank you, Adam.
I
So
was
Ellen,
so
would you offer
mad.
some perspective on that? Thank you.
Well, I'm not exactly sure about the question, but I think it depends. If you're just hot, and if there's no way, I mean, for the temperature in the place to be changed, then it would depend. If you weren't going to give 100% to the job, your performance was going to be affected, then I might think that it might be better, and you have the time to take off, then I might go home. But if you didn't, and you felt like you would still be able to give 100% of yourself, then I would just kind of power through it. But I think if you are hot over there and it is interfering with you, and it's an environmental issue, it might be an environmental issue, it's not that you're sick, then for sure the supervisor or the office manager, whatever, does need to know about that, and perhaps they could change the temperature there.
Thank you, Ellen.
Answer that question.
So Wintrell, you're up next. If you would unmute yourself and ask the panelists the question you have.
My name is Wintrell McIntosh, and I'm a high school guidance counselor here in the state of California. I have a question for the hiring managers and maybe anyone else that has experience dealing with this. I've reached a point where I'm pretty secure about self-disclosing that I stutter, and I'm actually very passionate about it. It's something I recently put in my a recent cover letter. Um, but I've run into a new um challenge around that, and that is self-disclosing after I've already began an interview and I've already displayed stuttering. And that happened to me, and I didn't know how to go back and acknowledge it because I felt like, well, it's already been displayed. So now how do I look going back trying to address it at this point? So I just kind of pushed through, but I was really, um, as I'm trying to respond to their questions, that's in the back of my mind. And the only reason I didn't self-disclose is because I just totally forgot to do so. It wasn't something I was trying to hide or anything like that. So yeah, if anybody could provide some insight to that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Danielle, or going to Ellen, would you have perspective on that from the perspective of a hiring manager?
This is Danielle. Honestly, I don't think they would think bad of it if you didn't disclose right away. I mean, it's still up to you and it's not something you have to do. So I think by backtracking, I don't think that a hiring manager would decide not to hire you, or they would get upset if you did it later. On that would kind of be my perspective there.
And Jonathan, I think that you had something to add.
Quickly, I've done that before, and then I will I would just tell them hey, you probably noticed this, and here's why, and then talk about that. Miss Allen.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would say, well, you now see that I do stutter, and this is what happens to me, especially during an interview, and go on with answering their questions and maybe giving an example how it hasn't interfered in other guidance counseling kinds of positions that you've had.
I appreciate it.
And just take control. I would take control of the interview at that point. You got power. Take control over it.
Thank you. And Danielle, I just wanted to ask really quickly, you mentioned something important. You said it's up to me if I decide to disclose or not. So I just wanted to ask, if someone doesn't disclose what you see stuttering, do you prefer that they, or would you have preferred that they disclose that? Or how do you assess that if they don't address it, but it's something that you see as they interview?
Well, coming from my perspective might be a little different because we do work with people with disabilities. And so I think by how Jonathan disclosed it showed me he was comfortable with his disability, and so that he would serve as a good mentor to the clients he has. I think you have questions, or there might be stereotypes out there. And so if you could, address it and talk about how you work around it, then that might ease the interviewer's minds. But again, it's really up to you and your comfort level is what I've always advised clients when I'm working with them.
Very nice. And I'll just add in two other things here. To me, when I disclose, it does two things. It helps to disarm the person I'm talking with. They have a better idea and they're able to say, oh, that's why he has that tick or something like that. So it disarms them. Number two, it actually gives me permission to stutter. I don't feel as though I have to hide. I feel as though, bam, it is out there. I can sit there and I can exhale just a little bit more, knowing that it's okay if I stutter because they now know how to interpret it because I've disclosed.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat box from Cheryl. Cheryl wants to know what are the pros and cons to disclosing during the job interview as opposed to waiting until you're hired during your first, let's say, 90 days on the job? Throw it over to Daniel or to Daniel or to Ellen for this.
Well, this is Danielle. So I think if I'm recalling the laws, correct me, and you guys can correct me too if I'm wrong, that you have to disclose at least at the time of offer if you're going to ask for any kind of accommodations. So that's where you kind of want to know what the laws are in your state. And then I think back to what everyone has kind of said is that it helps put you at ease and gives you permission to stutter if you choose to in the interview. But I also have had situations, not with stuttering, but with vision loss, where people have chose not to disclose, and then they disclose at the time of offer, and it's worked out well for them. So I really encourage people to do what they're most comfortable with, because that's going to come across in the interview. If you're being your authentic self, I think the interviewers are going to pick up on that. So you really want to think about what you're comfortable talking about in an interview.
Very good. I'll chime in on one aspect here is that companies do not like surprises. So if you choose not to disclose that or to tell them that you stutter, and let's just say that you have a very good ability to manage it. When you get on the job and all of a sudden, day one, doing introductions, as we'll get to a question coming up next, we all know it's tough for people who stutter to introduce themselves. And then that kind of adds a surprise and they start to going like, this wasn't the same person we interviewed. Okay, so that's all I'll say is that companies do not like surprises. So it's probably best, if you're comfortable doing it, disclosing it. Taylor asked this question here, which goes into introductions. She says, I stutter only in certain situations, like doing introductions. As a hiring manager, would you want to know that fact? That is that this person really only has a stutter that is shown when they introduce themselves.
Well, I guess it would, if it would make themselves more comfortable, knowing that other people will know that they are going to stutter, particularly if they're being introduced to a big staff, other staff, and introduced to coworkers, then I would probably say something. I know for myself that would probably put me more at ease. And then as a hiring manager, as a person, let's say if I did stutter, and then also as a hiring manager, I think it would be a good thing because then there would be no real surprises.
Okay, solid answer on that. So Michael has a question. If two people interview for the same position, would you prefer to hire the person who stutters or the person who doesn't stutter? Danielle or to Ellen, thoughts on that?
I honestly don't feel like the stuttering is a factor. I think it's content in the answers, because we ask a lot of situational questions. And so, we look at experience and the content of the answers. The stuttering in both the times that we interviewed Jonathan was not a deciding factor.
Okay. And if you all take a look at there were two good comments in the chat box from both Keith and Trace that kind of talk about their experiences disclosing. So you definitely want to take a look at that. Got a question from Sunil. I know that disclosure is a good thing in the long term, but I stutter more so-called severe after the moment of disclosure. So what kind of perception will I be portraying? And will this discriminate against me seeing me stutter more? Danielle or Ellen, any thoughts on that?
Well, this is Danielle. One thing that I really appreciated Jonathan was open about is that in meeting new people or in high stress situations, he does stutter more, so that we should probably expect a little more stuttering during the interview than we might see in the day-to-day. So how he addressed that, I think, was handled really well.
Okay. We got about 5 minutes left. So if you do have a question, you can either put it into the chat box, or you can use a raised hand under the participants button at the bottom. I'm going to ask a question here to the hiring managers. Did you, prior to working with Jonathan, did you know people who stutter? And if so, what were some of your feelings going in, or did you not really have any sort of interaction with a person who stutters prior to interviewing and meeting Jonathan?
I've had other people that I've interacted with who stutter, and in particular, one that I'm thinking of is the hiring manager that hired me. He had a stuttering problem. It was not very severe. It was very mild. Only showed up at certain times, but he did have a stuttering problem, and he would talk about it many times. And again, we worked in the field of with people with disabilities, and I myself have another disability. So we'd be more apt to be empathetic and more accepting perhaps than other managers would be. But yeah, I kind of knew what to expect just because of him, and I appreciated the fact that he did talk about it frequently. He talked about it at staff meetings and sometimes on a one-on-one basis.
Okay. So Jonathan, question for you. Did you or do you have any sort of accommodations made to you because of your stutter in your current role?
Not day to day. I do have a device called a speech easy. Probably some of you know what that is. It is a device that goes in my ear, and it works choral effect, and in some cases that works, and in some cases maybe not, but it is a tool I have used, and then also I'm currently in therapy, and that's been helpful. And then just also to think about, during this process, applying for jobs and being questioned is is going to be hard, and that's okay. You know, you just like me. Being questioned brings about the stutter more, and and then that's okay. It's my main accommodation is my personality and my willingness to not give up, because that can be pretty easy too, and during a process, as in applying for jobs and meeting new people, but don't give up, and think about what you're going through, and during the process.
Fantastic. Well, here we are at 2:00. I do want to follow up on one question that is in the chat, and we'll close this thing out. The question is stuttering a disability or an imperfection? I'll quickly say, stuttering is a difference as well as a disability, not an imperfection. Just because we talk different doesn't mean that we are imperfect. Doesn't mean that we have a problem. Just means that it might take us a little bit longer to express exactly what we want to say. Hey, y'all, if you can, put your view to gallery view, and I want everybody to unmute the microphone, and let's just give a big thank you to Ellen, to Danielle, and Jonathan for an informative webinar today. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.